We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may find yourself. Here it's afternoon in the central part of the United States, in California. You're still having your coffee and wiping the sleep from your eyes. But welcome, wherever you are, to the working week, as Elvis Costello once called it. This is Robert Phoenix, and you are listening to the Monday Mashup, a special Monday Mashup today, an extended Monday Mashup, 2 hours in length, to bring out, flesh out, and expose some of the more interesting, sordid, and surreal details surrounding the, I guess we're calling it Petraeus Gate now, with David Petraeus, Paula Broadwell, the Kawam sisters, and a number of other generals and commanders caught in the net of what appears to be a coup of some sort, a preemptive strike, perhaps on the part of the Obama administration, to remove the leadership at a very high level from a number of places within the armed forces. And in the case of Petraeus, the one individual who was sitting on top of the largest spy agency in the world. And if you think about that for a moment, it's kind of an interesting and in some ways a chilling thought that the man who would be sitting in the center of, as I mentioned before, perhaps the world's largest, maybe not the greatest, but the largest spy agency on this planet, was taken out. He was taken out by members of the FBI who spied on him and other internecine and perhaps even conspiratorial forces. So what kind of message does that send? Well, I'll tell you what it sends. It sends that, hey, if the guy who supposedly has his finger on the pulse of all the information in this country and in borders that extend beyond this country and perhaps even beyond this world, if he can be taken down by a simple affair and listened in on by the FBI, then what does that say for the rest of us? I mean, on some level, we have to take that into consideration because it is a profound thought, if you think about it for just a moment. And not only was he the head of the CIA, but he was one of the most powerful men in the United States military and the Army. And in fact, today's guest, Darren Williams, calls him America's modern-day Patton, and there could be a case that would be made for that. So we're going to get to the interview with Darren, which took place on Saturday. It's a great interview, and he really brings in some very interesting threads, including the etymology of the name Petraeus. So we're going to get into that in about 5 minutes or so. And it's an hour and 40 minutes, and we take a bit of a break because I had to take a break during the interview and come back to it, which we did. It's a two-part interview. It's kind of two parts here as well. So maybe I'll save some time on the intro side to bring some music in. Before we get into the interview, I came across an interesting article today. It's on globalrumblings.blogspot.com. I'm going to put this in the chat room. This is one of the reasons why you want to be able to listen to the show live, although we've gotten a tremendous amount of listens on the podcast side from the George Norrie and Giorgio Tsoukalos show on Friday. I can't put this in the, hold on a sec. Hey, there's Tiger 5. What's going on, Tiger 5? Gates, here we go. People are lining up. Ethereal Noesis, all in the chat room. I'm trying to put this link in here. If you can't get the link that I'm attempting to put in here, let me just read off the site because it's not allowing me for whatever reason. There was a time when I could get in and post links to the chat room, and now it's not happening. Anyway, here's the site. It's globalrumblings.blogspot.com/2012/11. You can probably see that. You can probably go there right now because it's one of the more recent posts. Anyway, the post is that the Earth's magnetic pole is shifting right now as we speak. So the rapid acceleration began in 1996, and we saw this clearly in 2011, and when they had to actually divert flights because the true magnetic north had been challenged and was moving. But my computer is not helping me out right now. It's not being my friend, which is unfortunate. But you can go to Global Rumblings. Let me see here, see if we can get this moving. I think we might have it. Just check this out. And you can read up about this. We're in a, Moon is in Aquarius today. Oh, here we go. So the post here is that, and this is all from NOAA data, the post here is that it is not wandering, but it's actually shifting. And I'm still trying to, my computer is not happy today. But let me just see here, so if we got it. I think we have it. Yeah. All right. So you want to go to globalrumblings.blogspot.com and check out their latest post, and you can get some information on what's happening, just in terms of progressions. And the data is there. It's all NOAA provided data, and they start with 2001, and then they get to 2010 and bring it into the present. We're staring down, of course, 12/21/12, and that is just in the distance, in the horizon here. And astrologically, we're dealing with some pretty interesting energies. Mars is in Capricorn, coming up on Pluto in the next few days, and that should be an absolutely intense and powerful conjunction, especially as it begins to oppose some of the natal United States planets. Okay, so let's do this now. Let's get into the interview here with Darren and listen to some of the absolutely brilliant connections he makes with the whole Petraeus affair. And we'll take a little break about an hour and 20 minutes into it, and then we'll wrap things up on the back end of the interview. And hopefully my computer, which is in kind of a funky mode and has been all morning, will allow me to get into this. And this is kind of a follow-up on some of the stuff that we did last week, or I did last week, with the Mashup and some of the posts on the site. Some of the material is replicated, especially this astrological stuff, but the etymological connections with Darren are really far-reaching. So here's our good friend of the show, Darren, a.k.a. Daz Williams, breaking down the Petraeus affair, and we'll see in about an hour and 20, and we'll listen to some music, and then we'll hear the rest of the interview, and then we'll wrap things up.
So here we are, it's Saturday, and I am talking all the way from Liverpool, just down the street from John Henry's favorite chip shop. The man himself, Darren Williams, a.k.a. Dan Lee Kuhlberg. What's going on, Darren?
I'm good. How are you in Austin, Texas?
Oh, just chilling like the gecko lizard out here in the sunny Southwest.
Lucky you. It's, as always, miserable and rainy and cold in Her Majesty's United Kingdom in November.
Well, I think those conditions can stoke the fires of imagination and inspiration. So let's get into what you've got cooking here. You've done some yeoman's work in going down the rabbit hole with Mr. Petraeus. So where do you want to start with this?
Well, one of the things that has interested me always around this issue is it's got multiple tangents to it. This conversation for some people may be controversial. Some people may laugh at certain things that I have uncovered, but I just ask everybody just to go with the flow and listen to it. It deals with relationships between men and women in long-standing marriage. It deals with big business. It deals with old America versus new 21st America. And it deals with even the origins of names in the zodiac. So I think the thing that got my attention, first of all, is the surname of General David Petraeus. And looking into research, it's actually from ancient Greece, with a possibility of its origins in Sparta. Now, for people who may not read books or watch documentaries like myself, if you've seen the film 300, that is basically the place that the origin of General Petraeus' name comes from. And I would say, looking into the General David Petraeus, he does maybe fancy himself as a King Leonidas type character. So even though General David Petraeus is of Dutch-American origin, his father being Dutch, his mother being American from the New York area, the name is actually from Greece, as mentioned, and it was originally known as Petraeus. And the Petraeus comes in 3 different sections, but it's linked with battle, war, and interestingly, an individual who stands up for the protection of the ordinary people and the upholding of civil rights from a dictator, which is really quite interesting. The first issue of Petraeus is a centaur. Now, for those people who listen to Robert's show, a centaur is the classic Sagittarius character, half horse, half man, that has the bow and arrow. And the story goes that this centaur called Petraeus goes to a wedding because the person that's getting married is a warrior, and Petraeus and his centaur friends have fought alongside this great warrior. So as the warrior is getting married, who was human to a human woman, centaurs were partying and dancing and drinking after this ceremony, and Petraeus got so drunk he attempted to steal the bride. So then this links with our General David Petraeus, because obviously the love of his life, or the woman, Miss Paula Broadwell, is a married woman. So that's a quite interesting link within that, and because of the controversy, what Petraeus done as the centaur, he sort of was demoted from his position in the military because of his drunken behaviour with the married woman. Later on, we have another Petraeus who's just a human man, who is a Spartan, and he is asked by the then king to negotiate with another king but use a strange type of diplomacy in which it's threats of war, but also enticements of negotiation between the two kingdoms. And because of that, he prevented a major conflict happening. So you have somebody who is a warrior and a philosopher, and again that links into a lot of articles people read about General David Petraeus, in that he had immense strategic abilities, as in not being afraid to use war, but he was also willing to listen to other people and listen to their perspective. So war wasn't so much an option, like as in being a neocon hawk. The interesting theme of the zodiac signs is in the centaur, is that Sagittarians tend to like adventure, travel and philosophy. And listening to Paula Broadwell's recent lecture on November 1st at the University of Denver that is available on YouTube, she mentions these three qualities within the general, that he does enjoy going and living in different places. He tends not to like being in one location, which a lot of people are saying was the reason why there was an issue with him being director of the CIA, because he was in the office every day, where he likes to be in the field and going around the world. And he's also very much a philosophical character with a keen interest in ancient Arabic and ancient Chinese military philosophy and tactics and beliefs. There's also a strong possibility that I've looked through my research that there could have been a possible coup d'etat led by General Petraeus against the current leadership. Now, the plan was for Mitt Romney to win the election and then give Mitt Romney maybe 3 to 6 months in power and then to take over. The reason for that is that David Petraeus personally sees what is happening to America, and later on I will reveal information that I have found from August of 2012 that is very worrying around the retail banking sector of America. So if you are currently listening to this and you live in America and you bank at Chase, or you bank at Wells Fargo, or you bank at Bank of America, it's very worrying. As of January the 1st, 2013 onwards, a major shift is going to happen in the relationship between you, the place that you have your money, and the federal government. And this could be a reason why David Petraeus has lost his job at the CIA, being humiliated and is under investigation, because as an expert of counterinsurgency and counterattack warfare, was he, along with his possible intellectual and, it seems, physical soulmate Paula Broadwell, were they actually considering having a takeover of the country because they did not like the way the country was going politically? So there's all these interesting things. The other thing as well is that centaurs, as mentioned, are a warrior class, and but unlike what people may describe as being aggressive, they are actually in the classical warrior type of thinking, in which they only attack as a last resort, and they generally fight to protect, not to expand, as in empire building, and they are against corruption externally and internally. These values of a centaur, as the mentioned Petraeus, from which David Petraeus gets his name, is also very close to that of George Washington, who himself was a former military man, and some would say it was an idealist. But these values of protecting the nation were very close to Washington's heart. And it must be noted that when an individual joins the United States military, they give a direct oath to defend the Republic or America against enemies, both foreign and domestic. So if we've got the best military man in the country, some would say Dempsey is, as he's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, but other people would claim it was Petraeus because of his time in the field in Iraq and Afghanistan. Petraeus would have them words about defending the country very close to his heart. And if you look at America at the moment, it's very peculiar because just this week, in all of this, there was an auction in the New York area of work by Andy Warhol, the famous American artist, and it was a record auction. So within this current recession we are living in globally, it seems that there are people at the top of the game that have never had it so good. So obviously, with Petraeus being a director of the CIA, he's got his eyes and ears into a lot of tasty information. And obviously, one of the things anybody in charge of the CIA is going to look at is the flow of money in and out of America and even globally. So it might have surprised Petraeus looking at his data and reports given to him on a daily basis, and then looking at the television news and seeing that there's no correspondence to it. Also, as mentioned, Petraeus did have Sagittarian traits, but his actual zodiac sign is a Scorpio, and a Scorpio is very interesting. As individuals, they like to hold grudges, they enjoy revenge, and quite typically they have superiority complexes. And another strange thing with Scorpios is they actually have an insecurity complex mixed with a superiority complex, because with all zodiac signs, start basic, look at the symbol, look at what the animal is, and a scorpion is quite a small animal, let's say, but it has tremendous venom within it. So it could be scared, and it's also reactionary as a animal, which is quite interesting. So it more thinks on instinct, but it does have poison within it, so it's a very dangerous foe, which is very interesting because now it leads us to Paula Broadwell, who herself was a Scorpio and also had a birthday 2 days after Petraeus had his birthday, even though they were 20 years apart exactly in age. So that was quite interesting. And one of the things I'm trying to deliver with this talk, listeners, is I'm going to give you some sources to look at. So don't worry if you've missed it. We're on YouTube and you can listen again on Blog Talk Radio. You can even download this if necessary. But there's a very interesting lecture from the 1st of November 2012, which Paula Broadwell gave at the University of Denver. And in YouTube, it is known as the Alumni Symposium 2012, Paula Broadwell. And within this, Broadwell, you can see what we know now, that it was more than just a writer-subject relationship. There's moments where Broadwell almost talks like a wife about David Petraeus, and it was almost obvious. There was one incident that shows the scorpion traits of Miss Broadwell when a member of the audience asks her around the worrying statistics of sexual assaults that many female members of the United States military suffer. And Broadwell responds that she, luckily, has not been subject to that type of abuse. But if somebody tried it, she has extensive martial arts backgrounds due to her black ops background within the United States military. And part of that, what she emphasizes, is that she's also a certified sniper. So therefore, if anybody messes with her, she knows a trick or two. So when she mentioned that, it got a very strange reaction from the audience. But then with the allegations of her sending threatening emails to other individuals, it then proves the mentality of it. But it is a typical scorpion trait to like attack, to like fighting, to like the battle in some way. The interesting thing about this whole issue with Petraeus, and this is one of the controversial aspects, is his own...
Can we stop for just 1 second? Because I want to comment on the Scorpio piece.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, there's another series of or pieces of evidence that really fleshes out what you're talking about, in that when she was embedded in the field and people would ask her certain questions about her work or her background, really kind of innocuous questions, she became very defensive very quickly and would escalate conversations to almost a confrontational level. So this is a pattern that she's displayed with a number of people, through this whole series of, being surrounded with Petraeus. And the interesting thing is that, all of this took place while Saturn's been in Scorpio. So, you and I had talked a great deal about the Jimmy Savile, row and everything that's coming out around that, and that being another manifestation of Saturn in Scorpio. And we can circle back to this later because you may even get there, but now we're not talking about that. Now we're talking about this, right? And now we have a different kind of sex Scorpio scandal and moving away from, a really seamy and dark and edgy and tragic sort of milieu to something that's more kind of garden variety and bringing it back into the realm of, kind of straight infidelity and, straight sex. But the last thing, and I'll let you get right back on your roll here, the last thing, Darren, which I think is interesting, is that all of this goes down during, so about 2 years ago, there was a major kind of brouhaha about the signs. And there was a guy who was an astronomer in Minneapolis who just, threw out there that, oh, by the way, the zodiac is wrong. And really, there's a 13th sign, and that 13th sign is Ophiuchus. And it got a lot of attention. And now, astronomers do this all the time to kind of, pull the rug out from under astrologers. Like, hey, you guys are wrong. There's 13 signs. But nobody ever really says anything when they do this. But for some reason, this got a lot of traction about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And the whole notion of Ophiuchus became much more prevalent. And now people were incorporating Ophiuchus, Ophiuchus-based astrology. So Ophiuchus, just to let people know, is the serpent. It is the sign between Sagittarius and Scorpio, and it is like the serpent king. And so all of this happened really when the sun was conjunct. I think this wasn't Cetus, but the sun was in Ophiuchus. So here we have kind of a serpentine uncoiling of this really kind of tawdry affair or series of affairs. So I just wanted to bring in a little bit more information and also corroborate what you're saying in terms of the defensive stuff around Paula Broadwell, because that was clear when she was out in the field with Petraeus that she would take it to that level. That kind of scorpionic offense is the best. The best defense is a good offense kind of mentality.
One of the interesting things is, I think, the whole interesting dynamic, apart from the documentation possibly being in a possession, these two twins in Florida who have got a background as Lebanese Maronites, but they could actually have relations in Syria, which is very interesting. Is Holly and David Petraeus. And one of the things that I think we have to be as people is we have to be honest as human beings, as the way we interact with each other. And one of the things that we still haven't interacted with is how men view women and women view men, and more importantly, in my belief, how men and women evolve and interact if they are married throughout time. And what occurs is that when people meet each other, it's fresh, it's new, it's interesting. But as the relationship gets more longer with age, more established, that initial attraction for a lot of people ends and people become more like friends. And when I had seen for the first time, due to this scandal, Holly Petraeus, I could, as a man, perfectly understand why the general had an affair. And people might say that's shocking, that's sexist, that's misogynist. But my point is that when I seen Holly Petraeus' hair, it was almost like a comedy wig. It was like something I would see a character in The Simpsons have. And I was thinking, if she's with this powerful man, one of the most, I guess, in terms of military, one of the most powerful men in the world, and maybe full stop, one of the most powerful and influential men in the world, she really needed to have maybe a better effort. And I can see why, as a man, I can see why he would have had an affair. And people might say that's wrong, but we are, if you were to believe evolution, some people may be religious and not believe that. I personally do. But if you were to believe in evolution, we do come from animals. So therefore, we do have parts of our character that are animalistic. And one of them animal traits is lust, is of the eyes, of vision, of sight, of seduction. And I think this is another element that people in their heart know, but then don't really want to say, because we're living also in a politically correct time, and people don't really want to say these things because not so much it's because of upsetting people, but they just don't want the accusation coming back at them. Personally, I don't care. I will express what I wish to express. That is the only way we can move forward, is through debate. So I wouldn't see the general as being a villain. I would see him as a victim of being weak, and I will get into that weakness and what made him eventually lose his job, in my opinion. But I do think that a lady does not have to necessarily be a very slim figure. She doesn't have to go to the gym. It's about personality. There is something within the Bible, and again, I could have offended people who are Christians. Now they're going to agree with me. But there is a verse within the Bible that says a woman is her hair, or the strength of a woman is within her hair. So therefore, how a woman's hair looks is actually a woman's strength. So when you look at Holly Petraeus, you know, that doesn't really come across as somebody there. Maybe we don't know why she has that hair. Maybe she feels comfortable in it. Maybe she doesn't feel maybe that she needs to be like that. Maybe she is a lovely person, but men are basic. In some ways, we are boys, and we never, that boy never leaves us. We do begrudgingly become men, but really we're just big boys, really. And I think part of that is we all like an attractive woman, or if not a woman, we like somebody attractive. We are by our senses, we all want a room with a view. Everybody wants to live in a place that has a nice view. Nobody wants to live in a place that has a horrible view, because we are of the senses. So that is something to take from this, and I wouldn't be surprised in 6 to 12 months that Holly Petraeus has a complete makeover in the strange way it runs parallels with the film True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis. And for people that have seen that, I think that maybe it had elements of the Petraeus' relationship in which maybe it might work for the best of them. Maybe she will, I don't know, be a bit less frumpy and enjoy life. But that's my take on it. And again, that's just something I like to do as a researcher. I do like to maybe put some pipe bombs, and I do like to put a bit of controversy there, and I do like to see what comes back. But I don't do it just for doing it. I do it because there's a method behind it. And I would like people, before they attack me, I would like them to at least just look at a photo of Holly Petraeus and look at a photo of Paula Broadwell. And if Petraeus is feeling weak because of certain issues in his employment, and then to add that one of the reasons he feels weak is because he dislikes his boss, who happens to be the president, and then his wife, Holly, works for the president and thinks that the president is this great, lovely, saintly figure, well, he's going to feel vulnerable and he's going to feel weak. And if a woman comes along who is 20 years younger and attractive and is hanging on every word he utters, you know, who can blame him? But what we will do is we will look now into the weakness, what happened with General Petraeus. And going back to the speech that Paula Broadwell gave to the University of Denver on the 1st of November, she stated that General Petraeus has always wanted to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. For those people that don't know what that is the number one, numero uno military man in America who reports to the president. And he felt, after successful terms in the field in Iraq, and then later replacing General Stanley McChrystal, who we will talk about later on, that in Afghanistan that job was in the bag. But it seems that in today's world, it's not the best person that gets the job, it's the person who's the best fit, or the person who's the best sycophant, or the person who laughs at the boss's jokes. So Dempsey got the job instead of Petraeus. According to Broadwell, this was a huge blow to the general's confidence, because going to West Point, being in the top 5% of his class, he always was taught and believed that if you reached your full potential and you'd done what the boss told you, you would always get the best position. And it seems that the 21st century has caught up with somebody that might have had 1960s morals. So he was very insecure with that. They offered him the role of the director of the Central Intelligence Agency, but they noted that he could not wear his uniform. He basically wanted to wear his uniform, but they said he had to wear a suit. So again, that was another knockdown in terms of his relationship with President Obama. The other thing as well with Scorpios is that it is a phallic symbol. It is a very sexual symbol, the tail. So even if a Scorpio is a woman, they tend to be very sexual people, and they tend to be quite dominant, and they aren't shy, especially in public. And the thing that's quite surprising is that in the media, the impression of Scorpios, the impression of General Petraeus, was of a very zen type of individual, very methodical, open-minded, but very maybe socially conservative. And the reports are coming now that he was partying like James Brown in some cases in Tampa and in other places. So it's very interesting that this thing is coming out. So the mainstream media is telling us that this guy is very stoic and very like Mr. Miyagi, almost like out of the Karate Kid, and he likes his literature and his books and his classical music and his glass of wine. But now we're getting somebody that likes Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and when he likes to party,
the Gasparilla parade in Tampa. I think, Darren, that sometimes the narrative can shift when it needs to, and so for a long period of time, that was the narrative that we got on Petraeus, and he may like to party a little bit, or he may really enjoy kind of what I get from that was that he enjoyed that was kind of for him being like a celebrity, being a part of those celebrations. And the thing that you also may have looked into here is the name David in terms of king, and I get a sense that that's kind of what his vibe and over was, and I think now what we're getting a slightly different narrative from the media, because that's what they want us to hear. That's the picture that they want us to see, or is being portrayed about Petraeus, because now it conforms to a different kind of model that may be a lot more convenient in terms of typecasting. And I'm not saying one is more right than the other, and both can be equally true. All I'm saying now is that this other narrative is much more supported in light of what's been taking place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And it shows what people must do. People may laugh at these type of shows that go into the alternative, but like with the Sir Jimmy Savile scandal that is absolutely rocking the United Kingdom to its cause because it links politics, celebrity and the monarchy, people are now asking questions of, well, if all of this is coming out about Sir Jimmy Savile's life, he died a year ago for those people that aren't aware, but if all these things are coming out about 1962, 1973, 1984, for example, why wasn't it in the papers? So what people have to realise is people may be new to this. People may be listening to this via a friend who is into this, but they may not be aware of it, but they're interested in this whole Petraeus gate or Petraeus scandal. And I would just say to have an open mind, because the mainstream media is like the referee in a sport in which we've all watched sport and we've all seen very strange decisions from umpires and referees, and when we're watching it, there's nothing from the commentary, the TV commentary team, and we can see as people, this is an obvious wrong decision, but the TV acts as if the referee's perfect. So what we have to now do as people, we have to be more open-minded, because what is happening in this current age, our heroes are being exposed, and we are now starting to see the fall of the hero. And maybe this is the theme of the latter part of 2012. There's been major things happening in the United Kingdom around police corruption that has gone on for over 20 years, that the current Prime Minister, David Cameron, admitted a couple of weeks ago. So people are realising that those people on our television screens aren't as perfect as what they are. So we have to cross-reference, join the dots, and expose the media for what they are, and we can expose it through our Twitter feeds and our Facebook pages and our conversations with friends and family, or that friends you've got in the work canteen. Speak to them, and eventually it will get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they will have to tell us about how the reality of the situation is, and they'll have to tell us everything from aliens in Area 51, if that does exist, to big international fraud in the stock exchange. But it's up to us to perceive, and it's up to us to look into this. One of the interesting points you raised, Robert, was around names. And again, people might think this is new agey and rubbish, but one thing I have experienced long before looking into this is that every female in my life that I have encountered with the name Victoria has exactly the same traits, and they are very to the point, no messing, they know what they want, and they're very direct, absolutely with a crosshair, absolutely direct, and they take no messing. And on the male side of it, every man that I have met with the name Mark has been an absolute slimeball. So it's very, so Mark has a very strange one. And then thinking about it, every woman I have met, or female I've met with the name Wendy, is a very precise and very Little Miss Perfect type of persona. And then men who call themselves Dave are absolutely brilliant. And I have people that I have met who call themselves Dave. They are there in the thick of it. If you are in any type of issue and that guy's called Dave, he will be there. And people might say, well, what has that got to mean? And why are you talking about names with David Petraeus? The point is that the word spelling, a core word of our English language, spelling, is a derivative of the word spell. So maybe when an individual is born, their parents cast a spell on that individual. So by giving that individual that name has a trait. So this is why I would ask everybody that if you are going to have a child, or even if you do have a child, look at the name you have given your child, the origins, and see if them origins are there. But I can guarantee that the majority of people listening to this, once they do their own research into their own names, or the names of the children, or the people that they're involved with, they will see them personality traits linked to the origin of that name. So we are sun, moon and stars. We are affected by all of this type of thing. And again, people may be listening to this for the first time, may think it is new agey, but this is basic science. When electricity is mixed with water, the electricity amplifies, but it amplifies in an uncontrollable matter. Who is to say that our bone structure is not a Faraday cage that somehow keeps this energy within us? So we are 80% water, but we also have electricity. I remember being in school, being a 12-year-old in a science class, and the teacher explaining to us that human beings have electricity in the body. And I was thinking she was mad, and I was like, is that the same electricity that powers my television at home? And she's like, yeah, the same electricity that's powering the light. So we have to think of how random and wonderful this existence is, that the same electricity that you are listening to me on, or what is powering this conversation I am having with somebody across the ocean in Austin, Texas, is the same thing that I have in my body. So it is weird and wonderful. The other thing with this incident shows a side to Obama and Eric Holder that's very interesting, is that they deliberately asked General Petraeus to resign on the 9th of November. Now, the 9th of November was Paula Broadwell's 40th birthday, and I'm sure with them investigating it, they very well knew that. And according to reports, Eric Holder, the Attorney General, I believe, knew about this scandal in early October. So it shows the almost sadistic side of the current Obama regime and how they are clinical. But the fact is that what we must remember is Obama is potentially, and his people, the most smartest, not in terms of the American people, but in terms of themselves, ever seen. We have to realise that America, throughout its history, has had assassinations and assassination attempts on its presidents. And the first black president has to be the sharpest tool in the box, so to speak, because he or she would have realised that they would have been in the crosshairs of some very angry and upset people. So Barack Obama sees the move maybe 3 to 4 moves in advance than his opponents. So even though General David Petraeus thought he was smart and thought he was possibly going to be the new saviour or the new George Washington of the country, he was always going to lose, because Obama might have put him in the CIA to actually have him under a microscope. and then we look at certain people connected with the Barack Obama regime. We've got his former spokesman, Robert Gates, who's now at Google. And one of the interesting things with this whole Petraeus Broadwell affair was that they both used the Gmail account. So therefore it shows, even though General David Petraeus was a military genius, it shows, and Broadwell as well, very intelligent woman, it shows that they still make mistakes, but Obama doesn't. So Obama, we will get into his cult of personality, but that date of Petraeus' resignation, being the 9th of November, was the cherry on the cake.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And it shows to me that Barack Obama, people may say he is a plant, he is a puppet, but that proves to me that him and Eric Holder are very, very smart cookies indeed.
So 11/9 is also the inverse of 9/11 as well, if you are keeping score at home. I have kind of a personal question to ask you, but it does relate to Obama.
Yes.
So you are mixed, right? You're mixed.
I am mixed race as an individual, correct?
Yeah, and so is Obama. So when you talk to somebody, do you identify yourself as a mixed race individual, or do you identify yourself as black? And if that's the case, wouldn't Obama be America's first mixed president versus America's first black president? I mean,
racial dynamics is very interesting because growing up, I would see myself as black because the white majority in the United Kingdom would deem me as black because of my skin complexion. Mm-hmm. But my grandmother was a white woman from Manchester, and I loved my grandmother. She passed away last year, and I still do love my grandmother. So as I grew up in my evolution, I realised it was pretty stupid of me to deny my grandmother in the making of me, because without my grandmother, I wouldn't be here talking to you. So I have evolved into that. But what has occurred is, in a way, it's due to the, I guess, job application form,
right?
Tick boxing, and now it's getting to a stage where mixed race is now coming into it now. So people are more comfortable with it. I would say that you can have somebody who is like, for instance, the guy Larry David was on, there's a show in America called Lopez Tonight with, I think, a guy called George Lopez, a comedian.
Right.
And on this show, they have DNA tests of guests if they want to. And because George Lopez wants to break these barriers down and wants to show the wonder of the melting pot and how it doesn't matter where you come from, and if you are diverse, that's a great thing. And Larry David gives him a swab of his mouth, saliva, and it gets sent to the #1 DNA research facility in Cleveland, Ohio, and it comes back. And Larry David has 25% Native American in it. And Larry David is of Jewish background, or he believed he was Jewish background.
Right.
So and this is all on YouTube, people. YouTube is your friend. And Larry David is totally stunned. And he says, and George Lopez says, we wouldn't do this as a rib because it's a very personal issue. But it come back to say you are 25% Native American.
Right.
And Larry David it just blew his mind. So I think we are coming to an evolution where those notions of is he black, is he mixed race, will be replaced with he is a person of colour.
Right.
And then I think in maybe 80 to 100 years' time, it will just be he's a person.
Sure.
So I think it's really getting to a stage. The other thing that's really interesting, what I've noticed with America is now starting to embrace its diversity, which I think is quite interesting. We've seen Brad and Angelina Jolie with their unit, with their rainbow-coloured family. We've also seen, in some ways, some controversial, sad incidents, but the star keeper of the U.S. women's gold medal soccer team, Hope Solo, new husband.
Let's not go there. Come on, she's marrying Jeremy Stevens, and that's just that is a train wreck. I mean, it's wonderful that they.
I know what you're saying.
They found each other. I'm not sure if that's a ringing endorsement for diversity. I mean, he beat her.
No, I'm just saying that this is how America is changing, because years ago, maybe it would have been like frowned upon. So even though it might be great, I think it will be a train wreck. But going back to popular culture, I remember watching Friends.
Yeah.
And it was like New York had no black people, or New York didn't have any Hispanic people, or people from the Far East, or Asian people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just these white people living in this white bubble, and in Central Perk, that was the coffee shop.
Right.
You'd have a few black people in the background, but now in America, it is just changing. You can see that part of that is the music. Part of that, maybe for a next show, is just the influence that Marshall Mathers, Eminem, has given to America. I think when, as always happens, when somebody dies, then historians look at the retrospective of their life. For some reason, there's fireworks going off people, so it's not gunshots in Liverpool. Mm-hmm. Somebody's letting off fireworks tonight. But basically, Marshall Mathers, his impact in American culture is immense, because he is a white guy with the skills of a proficient black rapper, and through breaking that down, it's opened different doors. So maybe in your research, Robert, it might be interesting to look at him and his own astrological zodiac.
Well, Mathers is a Scorpio. I mean, he's a Scorpio, and the thing about him is he, now we're getting into some very dark territory, and I'm not talking about complexion or melanin. We're talking about like programming, and I mean the guy that paves the way really for his kind of ascent is actually Kid Rock, because Kid Rock hits the scene before Eminem does, and Kid Rock. It crosses, he crosses the tracks, and he goes from his upper middle class, Michigan background to starting to hang out in, what is it? Is it Bellevue, or where he'd go to black parties and rhyme and do all that stuff. Well, he's kind of gone back in the other direction now, and he's done country and western music. But the common theme, well, I wouldn't say it's a common theme. Well, it is a common theme, but you have to dig. The thing with Mathers is now we're getting into this whole idea of selling one's soul, which he talks about a lot, and in his music, in some of his interviews, and I think his contribution has been interesting in breaking down barriers for stereotypes. But at the same time, it comes at a price.
Well, you may be right, because in the UK, when he came onto the scene, it was totally unreal. It was like I remember my parents telling me about the impact Elvis had in the United Kingdom, and how Elvis Presley really blew people away, because it was in effect a white man, but with the sensibilities of a black man in terms of his music and his passion and his delivery. And Eminem was the same. Eminem, it was classic Dr. Dre beats, and it was just the delivery, but it was the sarcasm of it, and it was really witty and intelligent and quite dark, but then funny. So what was happening was people would think that, well, rap was only for black people, and then he sort of broke it. So when you talk about people selling souls or people having that. In my own research, I can believe that because the impact he had socially in the United Kingdom when he's not British was immense, because it meant that white youth in Britain could now listen to black music without having hang-ups. And then that hang-ups goes back to the point you were making about, well, what is your perception of Obama? Is Obama black or is Obama mixed race? And we have these hang-ups, and again, another hang-up, if we backtrack earlier, was what I was talking about, the relationship between Holly Petraeus and David Petraeus, and we have to address the hang-ups, and then once we address the hang-ups, everything's cool. So it's all right for a white guy to rap. It's all right for a man maybe to want his wife, the woman that he's working for, the woman that he is living with, to maybe ask if this woman might be a bit more attractive, but then on the switch of it, she could ask him if he'll go to the gym and if he'll be attractive. And this is where we're going in terms of equality and women and men and determination, and women want to be just like men, and that's what Paula Broadwell represents. So now going from, and this is what people might be listening going, what the hell, they're talking about rap and Eminem and Petraeus, but this is the joy of this show, people, is that we go on tangents, and we're not CNN. If you want ordinary, switch off, listen to CNN. This is intellectual stimulation, and we're joining dots, and we're trying to bring things that maybe you don't deal with. So if you want ordinary, this is not the show for you, I guarantee. But going now into Chinese astrology, which you may or may not be familiar with, Robert.
Yeah, he's a dragon and she's a rat. And yeah, I actually wrote about this a couple of posts ago, and we can get into it. But it's the connection, the chemical, astrological connection between Paula Broadwell and General David Petraeus is legit. I mean, they have a very strong connection with one another. And
well, yeah, because they both understand each other through being the same star signs.
That's right.
Perfect symmetry.
Yeah.
And also Scorpios are very difficult with people. They can be at times quite moody people. So there would have been an instant understanding between them. And again, for people who may think this is new age, who may think this is nonsense, the internet is your friend. Just look at the core traits of the zodiac signs and look at the core traits of the Chinese zodiac, and then apply that to yourself and apply that to people you know. And I will put $10 American that nine times out of 10, the majority of times you will see them links, because ultimately, if it was foolish and if it was mumbo jumbo and if it had no foundation, this astrology, this zodiac, this Chinese animal zodiac, it wouldn't have survived this long. Things that are stupid cannot survive that long if they are 100% stupid. There has to be an element of truth to it for people to connect. So you have to look at things like that. At the end of the day, people aren't wearing MC Hammer type trousers anymore, or people haven't got ridiculous flat top haircuts anymore, because as time goes by, people may look in the mirror and think that was a bit extravagant. But that's what I'm trying to say. Things move and things change, but some things remain, because then things have a bit of truth to it. So now going into research I found about David Petraeus, the person. And what's interesting is it comes into father and son relationships, and the son having maybe a possible issue with his father and wanting to carve his own identity, maybe to go away from his father. The whole thing with Petraeus starts with his parents, obviously, And his father, according to numerous things I found on the internet, was a merchant sea captain of the Netherlands Navy. And it seems, according to various sources, as soon as World War II was declared in Europe, when they had the German-Polish border incident, and Churchill declared that Britain would defend Poland, his father, Sixtus, got a boat and went straight for America and didn't look back. And that is really interesting, because if that is true, then one could say that his father was a coward or a deserter. And then you have the son who became a top-ranking military man. So did the son, as an act of rebellion against his father, Sixtus, again, that's a very interesting name, Sixtus, did his son want to show his father that he was more of a man than the father? Because it seems in a lot of articles around his father, it says the same thing. As soon as World War II goes, he gets a boat, he lands in New York, and he meets the mother. So that's really interesting. The other thing amazing about David Petraeus is that, unlike other men in the military that go to these military academies in America, you have West Point. In the United Kingdom, we have Sandhurst. And these men are more like academic soldiers. What Petraeus done was complete the US Army Ranger School. Now that is maybe, along with the induction of the French Foreign Legion, the most intensive military course one individual can go in. And it's apparently, you have 4 hours sleep over a period of 61 days on average, and it is physical and mentally draining. So for Petraeus to even go through that shows you the type of dedication and drive, because ultimately he could have just gone the academic route, and he could have just done papers and degrees and doctorates and books and lectures, and he could have studied warfare, but he wanted to, warts and all, he wanted to get his hands dirty, he wanted all in. So it shows you the type of just vision and dead sense of thinking he has. The other thing people may have listened to earlier that I haven't gone on to yet is around this idea that there was a coup faction within the American military led by Petraeus. Now, history tells us in America that has happened previously with something called the business plan, and that occurred, I believe, in the 1920s or 1930s in America, where a number of industrialists linked with men in the American military wanted to have a coup, but one respected general came forward and basically had enough evidence to stop it. And it's one thing that Hollywood has never even made a film of. And when Hollywood doesn't make films of American history or aspects of American history, you have to ask yourself why. One example, going on a tangent, is with all these special effects, with all the money, with Hollywood making films about talking Autobots and Decepticons, Hollywood is yet to make a Apollo 11 Neil Armstrong film. So if that is America's greatest achievement, why is it not being made into a full motion picture by a great director, a Ridley Scott, a James Cameron, a Steven Spielberg even? So we have to look at why the business plan and that whole shenanigan and that whole scandal is hardly known by people, especially in America. As looking into cinema, I remember a character called Colonel Walter E. Kurtz, played by Marlon Brando in the film Apocalypse Now, that has a tangent with my research with General Petraeus. In the film Apocalypse Now, Walter E. Kurtz is seen as an academic soldier. He is going to basically hardly see any action, write a lot of papers, go abroad, deal with academics, and eventually maybe become the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Due to his experiences in Vietnam and seeing the reality of warfare and what it takes to win war, he then changes and becomes a psychopathic killer that becomes AWOL and rogue. And part of the reason for that is because of the notion that those in power play politics with the lives of soldiers and do not realise when they give orders the pain and the upset that causes in the world. And one of the things that I am glad that is being raised in America, not so much in Britain, but in America, is the whole wounded warriors issue. And these men and women who are brave enough to defend the country and are willing to risk their lives. And some of them know the orders that are given are basically for corporate interests and are not there to defend the Republic, but are there just to fill the pockets of very greedy and powerful people, but yet they still do it. And what has occurred is that that is a major issue. And General Petraeus, it was one of his passions around promoting the wounded warriors issue, especially to George W. Bush, whom he served, and to Barack Obama. And because of his constant nagging in some ways, it's meant that the budget for people coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan has increased. And Paula Broadwell, interestingly enough, in that 1st of November University of Denver lecture, mentions about the wounded warriors and mentions about the risk these men and women have in terms of not so much American national security, like doing a John Rambo, but just in terms of Medicaid and Medicare. If America invests in it, eventually it will be an investment. But if they ignore it and say they have no money, eventually with an Obamacare, and again, that will be an exert on the nation's thing. So you have to spend a bit of money to save a bit of money sometimes. So that was an interesting connection that independently Petraeus and Broadwell had, that I'm sure that brought them together. My whole thing of it is, would Petraeus have been a George Washington figure? I don't know, because one of the interesting things with him is he calls himself a Rockefeller Republican. Now, I was unaware what a Rockefeller Republican was, the term of it, even though I have a keen interest in American politics and its influence across the world. And apparently that is linked to a member of the Rockefeller clan called Nelson Rockefeller. And basically what Nelson Rockefeller realized is that even though his family are elitists, so what you have to do to continue the illusion is you have to invest. So imagine you have 100%, you give 30% to the people, and then them people think that's great. So you give them libraries, you give them infrastructure, you give them universities, you give them trains that run on time, you give them police, and they're generally happy. And that 30%, even though it's 30%, is a ridiculous vast amount of money. But then the elites, which Nelson Rockefeller and his family are part of, they get 70. But that's the deal, and that's what a Rockefeller Republican is. A Rockefeller Republican realizes that ultimately there are more of us than them. So you have to, in a way, keep people dumbed down, happy, pleasurable. But
right.
what has happened in America, especially in this year and under Obama, is that since 2008, is that the elites want 90%, and they just want to give the American people and globally us 10%. And they want us to be happy for that 10%. And they want to blame us for us having that 20% reduction, because we just were living on our credit cards. But yet the elites are spending vast amounts on Andy Warhol collections in New York this week. So it's very interesting. So I believe that Petraeus, as a Rockefeller Republican, as somebody that was had a political ideology based in 1960s and 1970s American northeastern politics, would have been rather shocked by Obama. And one of the things that I would like people to look at is quite a scary set of sources that I have found. And again, people, the internet is your friend. The thing you have to type in a search engine is the following: judge rules bank accounts not your property, not responsible if you lose your funds. That is from a website on Saturday the 11th of August 2012 called govslaves.info. That is GOVT slaves.info. Basically, what occurred in August was, in the Seventh Circuit of the Appeal Court in America, it was ruled that as of January 1st, 2013, when an American citizen has money in a bank, it is the issue between the individual and the bank. The federal government will no longer intervene. So, for instance, if an individual goes to Chase or Wells Fargo or Bank of America and they have their money in and suddenly something happens economically, the head of that bank could decide to take 25% of everybody's money in their current accounts to pay off a vital debt of that bank, and if that doesn't happen, that bank crashes. So ultimately now Obama, who's about change and about the rule of law, because apparently he's a constitutional lawyer. What a joke.
That is a complete joke.
Yeah, what a joke that is. He is now allowed, basically, it's like a gamble, in other words. You put your money in a bank and it's not protected by the federal government, and if you lose it, mate, you lose it. We in Britain, you know, if that happens, the government comes in because of certain laws, and then we have European laws. But I'm not saying Europe or my country's better than America. I'm just letting people know. Now, if people want more information on that, they can go on a site called Godlike Productions, and I'll give you the web address for that. That is www.godlikeproductions.com/forum1. That is the number 1 /message 1954-145/PG1. You can go on that, people. You can go on Godlike Productions. If that was too long for you, all you do is go to Godlike Productions and then go to the search ID and look for the user ID 1944-9421, and you will find on the same day, on Saturday the 11th of August 2012, there is information on Godlike Productions forum, and it goes straight into the ifs and buts of this really scary law that will be coming to America on New Year's Day next year. The other interesting source I found, and this is more easier to find, is, again, put this in a search engine: US military sounds alarm over mounting student loan debt. That should be on yahoonews.com, and that article was Thursday the 18th of October 2012, and it just sums up the greed and the disrespect and the corruption that we are living in this age. According to Leon Panetta, who is, I believe, the Defense Secretary, is he not, Robert?
Yeah, he is, when he's not in his walnut orchard every weekend in California.
Very nice. Yeah. I should join him. Yeah. Basically, Mr. Panetta came out publicly in mid-October this year to state that the main worry of American soldiers in the field is not dying or being severely injured, but student debt. And what they have uncovered is that when a person is in the military or has left the military, that individual should get a lesser rate on their student debt. It seems that American insurance companies aren't upholding that rule, and if people do not know it, certain insurance firms are keeping quiet. Mm-hmm. So we have American military staff in the field or who have left, who are traumatized enough from combat, who are now worried over something they shouldn't be worried about because the insurance firms, some financial institutions should be honest, but obviously there is no honour in today's world. Yeah. So basically, again, that goes back to the president. You know, why is the president not making this a major thing? Why is this just a little side thing I have found through doing a couple of days of research? But Liam Panetta came out and said it was a very strong concern of his. So we have General Petraeus in his role in the CIA. The CIA is looking at money, it's looking at weapons, it's looking at terrorists, it's looking at cyber terrorism. So in his role, he is checking godlike productions. He may be checking the David Icke Forum. He may be even checking Free Association Radio, Robert Phoenix. So he is getting all these things, and dots are joining. And he is now realising that the American dream, the thing that he had based his life on and what he had risked his life to protect, is a dream. Because ultimately, a dream is when you are asleep. It is not based in reality. So again, this is another thing that we do. Because it is repeated and repeated and repeated, we believe it. But if you break it down, the American dream, take away in America, what is a dream? So instead of it being the American aspiration or the American challenge or the I haven't got any metaphors.
Yeah. Well, this is the planned, demolition of America. I mean, it's a zero-sum game. It's been going on really since the 90s when Bill Clinton came into office, and they had essentially two major bubbles, which was the housing bubble, and first it was the tech stock bubble, then it was the housing bubble. But what preceded that was literally trillions of dollars moving out of the country and into China. This happened during the Clinton administration. And in order to make up the shortfall of all those assets leaving the country, that's when the bubble cycle started. So it all starts in earnest in the Clinton era. That's when we have NAFTA and GATT, all those things took place during those times.
I think I also want to raise with people, and this is a point that the media have not looked into. Bill Clinton went on oath and went on video, and he said the famous words, "As president, I did not have sexual relations with that woman." It later came out that he did. He kept his job. General Petraeus resigned, or maybe he was asked to resign. So therefore, it means that there is more to this than meets the eye. Because if a president of the United States can still keep his job after lying on camera, nervously drinking a can of Coke, getting redder and redder and redder in his face, and then it comes out that, in fact, he did have DNA evidence due to Monica Lewinsky's dress, that Bill Clinton was quite naughty, leaving a reminder of such. Mm. Therefore, why is Petraeus leaving? So there is more to this, people. We have not suddenly become more prudish or conservative from the era of Bill Clinton. We've actually become more debauched and more open-minded. So therefore, an affair is, and also Paula Broadwell has got all the accreditation. She's former Black Ops. It isn't like he was doing it with a girl from Hooters. So we have to really look into this. But one of the things I'm interested in, and this was a total tangent, is that there is a television show that is really getting a lot of hype in the United Kingdom from America, called Last Resort. And the theme of Last Resort is that there is a submarine called the USS Colorado that is given orders to fire ballistic missiles at Pakistan. Now, the captain of the Colorado is called a Captain Chaplin, and he refuses the order because he believes that it is in some way strange or peculiar. Then he gets another order from the White House stating to actually do what he's told. He refuses, and then the White House brings the USS Illinois, which is a Virginia-class submarine, to intercept and destroy the USS Colorado.
And where's Obama from?
There you go. But it gets even more interesting.
By the way, Darren, they've taken Last Resort off the air. I don't know if you know that.
Exactly, I was going to go into that.
Yeah.
Last Resort, it was being filmed in Hawaii. So we have Colorado, which is, I believe, Denver is in the state of Colorado,
right?
Which has serious industrial military connections in America. We have now the USS Illinois, and Chicago is in Illinois, and Obama is linked to that.
And Hawaii.
Then the USS Illinois is a Virginia-class submarine, which is, again,
Langley.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we have it filmed in Hawaii, and it was deemed that it was going to be cancelled unexpectedly. Mm-hmm. And the strange thing with Last Resort that got my attention was that it's being currently shown on Sky Satellite, which is in the United Kingdom, and that is owned by Rupert Murdoch. And the way Sky have been hyping this was more than the promotion for Season 3 of Boardwalk Empire. Now, Boardwalk Empire is on the Sky Channel, one of the most watched American television shows. But the amount that Sky is showing about Last Resort constantly, it's on near enough every time they have an advert, showed me that there was something to this. So I don't know, and obviously on American shows around the military, they do, and this is proven, people, you can watch this, shows as bizarre as Stargate or Stargate Atlantis are linked with the US Space Command, and they are advisors on these shows. So we don't know if these shows are propaganda, which I think they are, and we don't know if Last Resort was maybe a warning in a very clever Stanley Kubrick manner around the notion of the current leadership that is within the United States. But I would recommend, I will be checking Last Resort to have a look at it. Now, going into the popular culture thing, because just to entice new listeners so they can have something tangible that they can relate to, is that we currently have a movie out at the moment in America called Lincoln, which is directed by Steven Spielberg. And as we know, Barack Obama, the president, has a major obsession with Abraham Lincoln. So we have, again, people getting swayed by popular culture and maybe subliminally influenced. One of the things that the film, apparently it's not yet out in the UK, is it shows that Abraham Lincoln as president had to make difficult decisions and had to do the old American cliche of reaching across the aisle. And therefore, because he reached across the aisle and he had to make things that he wasn't happy with, it meant that maybe black people, African Americans, were more free than what they were as slaves, but weren't as free as what Lincoln wanted them to be. But in time, their progression would occur. So it's all about the path to hell is paved with good intentions, and I can see that being mirrored in Obama's second term, that he wants to reach across the aisle and he is prepared to make deals with the Republicans, that mean that the Republicans have more money, especially the elite ones, have more money than they had under the previous 4 years under his administration. Going back to General Petraeus, one of the reasons why I think he was a leader of the coup faction, the unsuccessful coup faction, was because the rumours coming out of Washington, D.C., is that there's going to be major changes to something known as the GI Bill, in which if you are a current or former serving officer of the US military, you get financial benefits. According to what's coming out, possibly in the lame duck session in December, some type of negotiation will occur where benefits such as low mortgages, help with education for the rest of an individual's life, lower car insurance will basically either be reduced or totally get rid of. So as General Petraeus is a military man, he would have been really offended by anything occurring that is touching any benefits. And that is
this is all connected to drone warfare, Darren. Because,
it's a new technology.
Yeah, because what Petraeus was seeing, obviously, was the kind of the end of the traditional soldier and being replaced by, these killing machines, from the sky, which won't stop there. I mean, they're going to be on the ground as well. But that's one of the other pieces that factors into this. Hey, listen, we got to take a break here. So why don't we stop and then we'll come back and then we'll finish up the rest of this and we'll let people continue to get into your material. Which, by the way, I got to say this: you live in Liverpool, and if a quarter of America knew half as much about what you know about America and what's going on here, the country would be a vastly different place. So let's just take a quick break, then we'll come back and we'll work with the final pieces of your material. Hold on a sec here. Okay, we're back after that musical interlude and probably your pee break after you've listened to the last 1 hour and 20 minutes of absolutely brilliant insight, blazing insight from our man in Liverpool, Darren Williams. Darren, welcome back. And you wanted to talk about Corky, a.k.a. Clover, a.k.a. Lara Croft, a.k.a. Angelina Jolie, and the CIA connection with her and Mr. Petraeus. This is absolutely really fascinating. So why don't you jump into that?
Yes, what has been discovered by the British press, not the American press, over the past 24 hours is that it was said that General Petraeus in his role in Afghanistan and then later on in his role in the CIA held private meetings with Miss Jolie due to Miss Jolie's role as a UN ambassador. It has now come out that Paula Broadwell was also attending these meetings, both in Afghanistan and in CIA in Washington, D.C. People are confused why a Hollywood movie actress would have such access to such a senior military man, such as General David Petraeus. What I get from it is a quite surprising move. Just before the election, a film was released called Killing Them Softly, which was made by Brad Pitt's film company Plan B, and we'll get to the name of that later and the origin of what a Plan B is. Basically, this film has Brad Pitt in the main lead as a character called Jackie Corgan, and the very final scene of it, I know this is a bit of a spoiler, but it's an amazing film, is a brutal analysis of Barack Obama's 2008 Grant Park election victory speech in Chicago. And it's playing on a television in a bar, it's set on that night in New Orleans. And a criminal is speaking to Jackie Corgan, played by Brad Pitt, around how Obama and his election victory could mean a positive change for America, and even alluding that maybe in a couple of years this messianic hero might mean that they might not be doing crime no more, they might actually become legit. And Brad Pitt just basically, as the character, Jackie Corgan, absolutely buries Obama and calls him an idealist and even hints that he could be a charlatan or a con man. This is very surprising because during that 2008 election period, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were very close to the Obama campaign, fundraising, campaigning for him, even donating money towards his eventual victory. During the Cannes Film Festival, where this film was premiered in August, I believe, a number of people who were film critics were asking if Brad Pitt had now changed his view on Barack Obama, and also Barack Obama's great emphasis on change. And within this press conference, I interpreted it as Brad Pitt being very coy in terms of his support for Barack Obama. It must be noted that Barack Obama and Angelina Jolie were absent from the 2012 re-election campaign, which shows that something has occurred. I believe that basically, and we're going to look into the coup faction, I believe that if General Petraeus was successful in taking control of America from Barack Obama and the Wall Street banking elite, he might have had Angelina Jolie in a role as maybe Minister of Culture or some sort of governmental role, and then that led to Brad Pitt strategically having this film released on the eve of the election with some hope of possibly putting a spoke in the wheel of Barack Obama, because maybe both Jolie and Pitt, being very close to Barack Obama's people, such as David Axelrod, Rahm Emanuel, Dimension Gibbs, who's now at Google, they might have realised there's more to Barack Obama than meets the eye. So that was a very interesting thing, and I would advise anybody that hasn't seen it to see it as soon as it comes out on DVD, because it is a fascinating look at America and also New Orleans as well in the aftermath of Katrina. Now, my last point is on the coup faction that I have mentioned a number of times during this conversation. What we have seen is a general called Stanley A. McChrystal. Now, Stanley A. McChrystal said some rather harsh things about President Obama in a Rolling Stone magazine interview, in which he was sacked from his role, or he resigned, but in other words, he either resigned or he was sacked by Barack Obama for calling Obama a dreamer and not living in reality and wanting to be all things to all men. Since McChrystal has left the military, he is teaching at Yale University at the Jackson Institute for Global Affairs. What makes this quite unique is that all students that are taught at this university department have to sign confidentiality agreements. There has been a number of academics at Yale that have actually criticised this as being against university protocol and against free speech. But for some reason, the Jackson Institute for Global Affairs still continues to have this confidentiality agreement. The other thing that's interesting with McChrystal is that he's also on the board of JetBlue Airways. That is a low-cost, cheap budget airway that goes all over North America and the Caribbean. The next thing is McChrystal is also on the board of something called Navistar International. Navistar is the #1 maker of school buses. That is the traditional yellow school American bus. and other large HGV, heavy goods vehicles. So we have somebody that is in some sort of logistics, possibly making, as a cover, could it be tanks really getting made instead of yellow school buses maybe? So I found it very interesting that McChrystal could criticise Obama, but then I find it quite bizarre that these people think Obama is stupid, because as I've mentioned, for a person of colour to reach that position, you have to be razor sharp. You have to see moves for in advance before your opponent, and then you have political scientists, and I use that word correctly, such as David Axelrod and Rahm Emanuel. I'm not saying I admire these people, but I have to respect their intelligence. The other thing that gave the game away for me in terms of the coup faction is in 2012, McChrystal, for some reason, said that he wanted the draft to be reinstated because he said it would increase professionalism within the youth of America. Obviously, if you are a president of America, you do not want the draft to return, because that means large percentages of your young people, mostly men, will be military trained in a certain standard. So you do not want that. So I think McChrystal gave it away. And then the other thing that was interesting was, and this went completely under the radar, in the same week of Petraeus resigning, the head of AFRICOM, Carter Ham, was demoted from a 4-star general to a 3-star general. Some people believe it was because of the Benghazi attack, and maybe ultimately, I got the wrong individual. But basically, if you look at the actual details, a general has been demoted this week from a 4-star general to a 3-star general. It could be Carter Ham, but I've given you so much information, people. I think I'm allowed to make a mistake. But a general this week has been demoted for financial irregularities, but because unconnected to this. But remember, I believe that there has been some connection. A general has gone. And the other weird thing, you might know, Robert, is that there's another general who was taking topless photographs of himself and sending it to a woman that Paula Broadwell was sending.
You're kind of crossing wires there. There is John Allen, who is the head of operations in Afghanistan, who took over for, it was Petraeus, it was McChrystal, Petraeus, moved Petraeus out, and then Allen. So Allen took over, and Allen apparently is known as the warrior monk. Now, he's a Sagittarius. He was born on the 15th of December in 1950, I believe, or 53. So he's a Sagittarius. He has a lot of planets in Sagittarius. And he was the one that Joel Kelley had asked to intervene for her sister, Natalie, in a child support, child rights case. Like she wanted to get full supervision of her kid.
Yes, correct. But can I just interject, because
yeah.
I think that what's interesting is that when they asked President Obama about General Allen, and could General Allen represent the United States military being a representative at NATO, he said he had full confidence in General Allen. Now, I found that the man that was demoted is a general called William Ward, and he was demoted this week because of a lavish 5-star hotel spree. So we've had a general having to resign because of infidelity. We've had another general admitted to sending inappropriate photos of himself
Well, there are 20,000, according to the press, 20,000 emails between he and Joel Kelley, which I find hard to believe. I think that there's a level of hyperbole in that 20,000 emails. I mean,
well, what I will do to wrap this up is what I would like people to do, because we're tight of time, is to look more into U.S. General William Ward and ask yourself, in the same week as General Petraeus resigned, could it be not connected to William Ward being demoted from a 4-star general to a 3-star general? So what I think is that we have players led by Petraeus, with U.S. General William Ward, with U.S. General Allen, McChrystal's obviously in the background, and what the plan was for Mitt Romney to possibly win the election. America doesn't like Mitt Romney, the Liberals don't like him, the poor people on the street don't, so they give him 6 months, in other words, rope to hang himself, and then they come in like John Wayne, leading the forces to save the day, and then people will accept a military type of a government that will temporarily take control and clean up America. This didn't happen, and it could be basically, again, going to the genius of Axelrod. I believe that this was the reason why Barack Obama was so pathetic in the first debate against Mitt Romney. He was bumbling. He seemed more interested in the anniversary of him and Michelle, their wedding anniversary that happened to be on the same night as that debate. And because he allowed Romney to look so good, it began people thinking Romney would win. I believe that was a carefully orchestrated plot to see who exactly were the individuals involved in this coup. The faction, remember, Petraeus was using Gmail, Gibbs is at Google, and then maybe William Ward and Allen went forward, festered up, and then admitted what the plan was, and then rather than maybe ask them to resign or sack them, they demote William Ward by 1 star back to 3-star, and then they release embarrassing things about Allen, but then state that he can still be at NATO. So as I think in 80 years' time, people will look at this, when historians look at it, as an attempted coup. I believe I will be proven right. Also, if people believe we've been talking nonsense for the past couple of hours and near 2 hours, I would ask people to go on YouTube. Remember, YouTube is your friend, and just type Rachel Maddow, NDAA. That is Rachel Maddow, NDAA, and you will see somebody maybe you respect more than Robert and myself talking about concerns she has around the contradiction of President Barack Obama. If you agree with me, disagree with me, want to know more, I'm available on Twitter at Daz, D-A-Z, Alt, A-L-T, Theory. That's not Tinkerbell, that is science, T-H-E-O-R-Y. That is Daz, Alt, Theory. Or if you'd like to read some of my blogs, that is at generaljimmy.com. That is generaljimmy.com. Or you can put in the search engine Darren's Alternative Theory, T-H-E-O-R-Y. So you can hook me up on the Twitter, get this to me. Also, what I would like is for people not to listen to this to get angry, because the way of the 21st century is to use intelligence. It is not to use physical violence, because ultimately there are intelligent, super intelligent people who are sinister, in charge of not only America but of Great Britain and other parts of the world, and they want an angry population. The only way we are going to do this is by doing it on a micro level, which is talking to suitable people you know in work cafeterias, work colleagues, members of your family who you feel that are open, friends that you trust, and then we will have a snowball effect. It may take 25 years, it might take 5, but knowledge is key, not violence. So if you want to listen to this again, it will be on YouTube. It will be available on download at Robert's site. He will give you the details. So I would like to thank everybody for listening to this, and in the famous words, God bless America, because at the moment, that's what America needs.
I totally agree with you entirely, Darren, and I think you did a really amazing job of laying out, the scenarios here and what's been going on. The only thing that I would slightly tweak a little bit of is I don't necessarily think that the Romney presidency was going to be the coup moment. I think that the Barack Obama presidency was going to be the coup moment, and I think that that's been happening for a while now, because one of the things that Obama has talked about is cutting back on military spending, and that was not something that Romney was going to do at all. So, theoretically, the money is going to be drying up for the type of warfare that has been waged in the United States and around the world for the last, 50 to 60 years. We're moving towards a technological, war front.
Yeah, futuristic, and also Obama, the very first Halloween that he had in the White House was a Star Wars theme one.
Yeah.
And the original, the guy who played Chewbacca was there. The guy who actually played Boba Fett was there.
Yeah.
The guy that played C-3PO was there, all dressed up in the Star Wars outfits. And the rumour is Barack Obama goes to DARPA, and he's quoting things he sees on, like, Predator movies, like Predator 2, and Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and Star Wars. And he's asking them if they can make things of a similar caliber, if it's possible, if they can use aspects of what he's watching in science fiction films, or when he has meetings with Spielberg, or the woman that done I forgot Catherine Bigelow. So when he's having meetings with Bigelow and Harvey Weinstein, they're obviously talking sci-fi. So Obama is a 21st century guy, likes of U.S. General William Ward, General Petraeus, Allen. They are of a 20th century existence. So this is where I think you're right. I think the coup faction was a bit afraid of technology replacing the man. But thank you, Robert, for this interview, and I hope that people download this and forward it and talk about it and debate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff, Darren. Thanks again for joining us and busting out some wide and vast knowledge and making the connections. Always, always, always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
All right, that was Darren Williams, and that took place on Saturday. And the information is incredibly fresh. If you're in the chat room, you'll see that I posted a link to Webster Tarpley's latest article, which essentially says the same thing that Darren was talking about, getting a little more granular about who and why this coup and the counter coup have taken place. And we're witnessing something absolutely remarkable. And Tarpley, he touches on this briefly in that piece, and that we are seeing the machinations of the secret governments and governments behind the scenes, these fifth column groups kind of going at it in front of us. And it's very rare that this type of almost open warfare takes place in front of us. So take notes as to what's going on. This is remarkable. And it's not done. It's not over, because one of the things that Darren and I talked about after the interview was over was that now that they've removed these guys, well, they're not inert. They are not hermetically sealed, warriors of the flag. They have their cronies, their compatriots, they're the people that have supported them, and they are still in business. And it's kind of like when Carter disbanded a lot of people in the CIA. Well, they came back to bite him in the ass, and they got him pretty good with Iran and the hostage crisis, and that became Carter's moment. And apparently, based on what Tarpley is saying, and which makes an incredible amount of sense, was that Petraeus, through the CIA, was going to create an Iran moment for Barack Obama with Benghazi, that Benghazi was going to be Obama's Iran. And apparently when the whole Benghazi thing went down, David Petraeus was at the movies. So there's a lot more that we're going to learn about this in the days and the weeks to come. And there is a font of information that's out there right now. And again, this is in some ways a function of Saturn and Scorpio, because what we're looking at here is we're looking at what's taking place, behind the scenes, behind the curtain, under the rug. And that's Scorpio. Scorpio is, it's the 8th house. It's depth and it's darkness, and it rules spying and covert activity. And Saturn now is compressing this. So a lot of this stuff is coming up. And obviously, we're going to see more. I don't think we've even reached the tip of the iceberg with what's being revealed. So keep your eyes and your ears open and continue to deconstruct some of this stuff, because it's pretty rare that we get a real look behind the scenes. I also think that what Darren talked about with respect to the banks and the first of the year, and the FDIC will no longer back American currency inside banks the way that it has before. And I was talking with a connection here in Austin who has told me through a friend of his that the new money is here, and they have seen it, and it's at one of the reserves. I think it's in Massachusetts. So there's a replacement currency already in the wings. So keep your eyes and ears open for that one as well, because we might be staring down a physical cliff, but it's not without a plan B. The plan B is already apparently close to being in action. And I believe that the plan B won't just be the United States. I think we're going to be having discussions about the North American Union here very soon. And I think that the currency will be a North American Union currency. Although my friend hasn't backed that up. That's my sense. Okay, that was a great Monday and a great way to start the week off. It's been information-packed, dense. Listen to this again, pass it around. We'll be back on Wednesday with navigating the astrological matrix, and we'll look more into Saturn and Scorpio and the arrival of Mars in Capricorn. And it's a very different energy, and we're coming up on a Mars-Pluto conjunction, which is profound to say the least, both in terms of the individual life and the collective as well. But until then, use your head to discern what's real, your heart to see open what's possible. You've been listening to the Monday Mashup, the extended mix. My guest today was Darren Williams, a.k.a. Daz. Find him on GeneralJimmy.com, Daz All Theory. And I'll see you guys all together here on Wednesday. Adios.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.